Tootsie gang, Tootsie gang. Hey, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. So, we are going to continue with reading Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen, and today we are going to pick up with chapters 7, 8, and 9. If you haven't been following along with chapters 1 through 6, I will link those two videos down below, and you can check out the first couple chapters. And yeah, we're going to continue today with chapter 7. And just a little refresher, we're at where Simidele summons Yamoja to help with the person that she has saved, and kind of ended on a scary note where Yamoja says this will mean the death of all of us, or of us, I guess. But I don't want to spoil it too much, so if you haven't read or listened to the first couple chapters, make sure you go ahead and do that. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Chapter 7. Also, my apologies, guys, if I sound a little stuffy. My allergies have been insane lately. And I'm also dealing with some, I had to go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, so I'm dealing with some head stuff. But, yeah, hopefully it's not too bad. Alright, let's go. What do you mean? I ask Yamoja, my voice cracking. She doesn't answer me. The curve of the Ariza's spine, draped with black curls, shudders once more as she remains bent over. I move closer, but the only thing I can see clearly is Yamoja's shaking hands. Long, slender fingers adorned with jeweled rings that catch the sunlight. They are hooked into the sand, nails slicing through the white as the Ariza begins to wail. The sudden cry builds, drenched in grief, anger, and fear, her body trembling as it pours from the hunched form. Can Yamoja be killed? Does R mean all Mamiwata? I know we are strong in the sea and mortal as humans, but I hadn't thought about what could unmake us. Terror winds its way around me, pulling tight against my core. What could be so bad that Yamoja is reacting like this? I look over at Kola, but he is frowning and rubbing the back of his neck. The Ariza's cry peaks in a drawn-out sob that slowly quiets as I drop into a crouch beside her, so close that I could feel the heat of her skin. Mother Yamoja? The Ariza's spine straightens as I hear her suck a breath in, and she turns to face me, smoothing away the tears that escape. Help me, she says simply. Her eyes are glistening, but she lifts her head and holds out a hand that still shakes. As I rise to my feet, I see Kola on the other side of the Ariza. Our gazes lock for a second, and then we're both bend down, taking Yamoja's hand and lifting her so that she can stand. I have spoken of my pain at what is happening, but what you must understand is the order of things. Yamoja adjusts the twists of gold on her arms before continuing, her voice like black satin. To fail to follow this edict would be great risk, a price I have paid in part already. I don't understand. Yamoja sighs and turns to face me, her lips pressed together. Let me try to explain. In Ile Ife, the first city on earth, all men were created equal, but they craved difference and begged the supreme god for it. In the end, Olodumare gave them what they wanted, separate clothes, languages, lands. The Ariza stops to look directly at me. Can you guess what happened? Chaos, I simply answer, the words springing into my mind. Exactly. War and inequality followed and still do. Mankind fight over the very differences they were once begged Olodumare to give them. Emoja pauses and jerks her hand upward. A wave just beyond the shallows curls in response, and so Aladamir decided that humans would need to make their own way, learn their own lessons, and decreed that their destinies would be their own. Even Arises were bound not to directly intervene in the lives or deaths of man. This was made clear to all deities. Have you never wondered why you are only asked to gather souls? We bless them on their journey, I say, my voice small when I think of those discarded in the sea. And why do you think I have never wrecked the ships, or commanded all 7 Mamiwata I created to do so? I say nothing. I think about the sorrow, the same emotion I feel every time we bless a soul. The thought of her torment burns within me, similar to the pain that tightens my chest in the sea. Creating 7 Mamiwata was risky. Olodumare sees it as a fracture of his decree. It did not go unnoticed, and once again I was reminded of the decision for mankind to have free will. Emoja sighs, her hands going to the whiteness of her veil. Olodumare saw your creation as a blurring of the line, a disrespect of the rules that were set out. What does that mean? I ask. A cold trepidation catches at my breath, spreading through my veins and making my heart beat faster. What happened? Perhaps it would be easier to show you. Emoja's fingers caress the golden clips at either side of her veil. She fastens her jeweled clips, her silvered eyes on mine. There's a moment when she hesitates and I feel the rush of apprehension. I have a feeling that I won't want to see what lies beneath, but I know I don't have a choice. I watch as Emoja holds both sides of the mask of pearls and lowers them. The cry that escapes me is sharp, and I can't stop it. Emoja tilts her chin, and the sunlight caresses the skin in soft golden tones that decorate the horror of her once hidden face. I breathe out and force myself to look, not turn away. The slopes of Emoja's cheeks are scored with deep vertical gouges, 3 on each side of her face. The ragged grooves pull and drag her skin, beginning under her eyes and ending just before her mouth. I hold my chest, pressing against the hard beat of my heart. It is not so bad, says Emoja softly, taking a step closer to me. Please don't be upset, Simidele. This is my punishment, and I took it gladly. In return, Olodumare allowed the existence of Mamiwata and the task I have set you. But that is all you are allowed to do. I feel a touch of my arm, and without looking up, I notice Kola. He leaves his hand there for a moment, but I don't let myself take any comfort from the roughness of his palm. I shrug it off. Did Olodumare do this? I ask the Arisa, my voice cracking. I can't think of a supreme creator treating humans or Arisas like this. Distant but loving, all Olodumare has done is create and bless both. This doesn't make sense. Emoja shakes her head and curls swinging. No, I have only unbound love for the supreme creator, the Arisa says, a smile on her lips. Although I know Olodumare would be furious if I defied them again, my gratitude is eternal. So who did that to you? I demand, fury bubbling up in me. Emoja's eyes darken as she frowns, silver flashing across them. It was Iso. Isu, messenger of Olodumare, said to have over 200 names, which show his many sides, his ability to change form and master any language. I shudder when I think of his role as kinsman to the Ajogan, the 8 malevolent warlords intent on the ruination of the life on earth. Only Isu can keep them at bay. For these reasons alone, Isu holds power unlike any other Arisas. It was he who told Olodumare of my creation of Mamiwata. Emoja grips her veil, watching the pearls shimmer as she speaks, although I am sure that if it were something he could have done, his view would be different. He was jealous? Umoja laughs suddenly. A harsh bark splits the air. Isu covets what others have. His quest for power is insidious and constant. From stealing loved ones of kings and queens to using other arises for their powers in hopes of gaining more himself. And so he used Olodomar's decree to hurt you. All I know is that Isu was jealous that I was able to create you. After telling Olodumare what I had done, he came to give a voice to the supreme god, to deliver the message of displeasure and consequences. She pauses, touching one of the scars with a tapered fingernail, and to mete out the punishment. I watch as she clips her veil back into place, but the jagged scars have imprinted themselves on my mind. Realization settles in me like stone. So taking Kola from the sea, Umoja frowns and brings her hands together, interlacing her fingers. It contravenes what Olodumare set out. Your actions have broken the decree I am bound by, the decree we are bound by, and one that Isu will only be too eager to enforce again, especially if it means the end of Mamiwata. I look over at Kola, who stares back at me. My throat is dry, and each swallow's uncomfortable click as I think of how he grabbed me and the way he demanded to see Umoja. For him, I have risked so much. As if he can hear my thought, Kola lowers his gaze, shoulders set in awkward lines. But why would you not tell me, I ask, my voice rising higher with frustration that is tinged with anger. I should not have needed to, Umoja hisses, hands in rigid claws like talon-like nails glinting. You forget your place and your proper tone, Simideli. You are my creation, my daughter. All you had to do was listen to me and complete your task. I stay silent, words building, despair forming an unleashed wave inside me. Umoja should have told me about the decree. How can I do the right thing if I don't fully know what it is? Shallow breaths match the rapid beat of my heart, and I struggle to hold it all in. The other Mamiwata do what is asked of them, nothing more. They do not prance around my island in human form pretending. They do not question me, and I did not think it was necessary. Her words release a tide of anger, and I interrupt, my voice barbed with fear. You should have told me. Umoja glowers at me, her eyes bright with silver and rage. I created you and gave you your task. She steps closer to me, the task that you agreed to do just a few days ago. Simi, Kola starts. Be quiet, I hiss at him. If he weren't here, if I hadn't dragged him from the sea and brought him to the island, then none of this would be happening. But then I think of him in the dark water, of the whites of his eyes when he opened them. My first instinct to reach out and snatch him to me. He would have drowned. I unclench my fist slowly. Even if Umoja has told me never to meddle in a person's life, I know I couldn't have left him in the sea. My anger is layered with guilt, but none of my thoughts are stained with a true regret. I cling to the rage inside, trying to take solace in its burn. Mother Umoja, should I have let him die? I asked, turning my face back to the Ariza. Moments pass as Umoja glares at me but does not answer. Kola swallows and shows courage by stepping between us, uneasy in his stance. What now? What can we do to make this right? Perhaps I should have told you, Umoja's shoulders slump, but she holds a hand out to me. We need to set aside our anger. Now is not the time for us to be divided, daughter. Her rings glitter on each finger, her palm a lighter brown held up in the sun. I know that what she did, what she does, is all to help. Umoja, mother of all arises. She is resplendent and magnificent, willing to risk everything to ease the pain of those enslaved, and her compassion is all-encompassing. I recall her wide scars, and rage dulls to a pulse of shame settles inside me. I may have saved Kola, but in doing so I failed her. Mother Umoja, I whisper, taking the hand extended to me. I'm sorry, what can I do? Umoja pulls me into her heat and strength of her embrace, and is like hugging both the sun and the moon, like fire and ice. When she releases me, she takes a moment to collect herself, standing tall, rearranging the curls of her black hair. Olodumare will find out eventually. Since your creation and my punishment, Isu has watched me even more closely. We will need to inform Olodumare ourselves and ask for his absolution. The Ariza holds my gaze. After Mamiwata's inception, I fear I do not have much of the Supreme God's grace for me left. She brushes her fingers against the clips of her veil. Since it was not I who broke the decree, Simideli, it is you who will have to ask for forgiveness. I look at Kola and back to Umoja. Think about the other Mamiwata. If there's a way to save them all, I will take it. What do I have to do? The need to make everything better thrums inside me. I think of Volsade and the others, of Mother Umoja, and the wrath she risked to make us. I have endangered all of them. I watch the Ariza walk toward the sea. Her back is sculpted as the nighttime desert. We need clemency, says Umoja, as she regards the shifting waves. But will Olodumare forgive so easily, I say, moving to her side? I do not know. Remember, it is not that Olodumare does not care about humankind, says Umoja, a fine line forming the slash of her eyebrows. The sea whispers at the Ariza, but she ignores it. Olodumare's past interactions have colored how they see the world they created. I have frowned, twisting my fingers together. Is there any way that we could still use Isu to gain an audience, without telling him exactly? I hasten to add. As Olodumare's messenger, he could pass on her words. Isu is not to be trusted, not at all, Umoja barks, and I flinch. She lifts a hand, and a wave twitches, responding in a swell. As I told you, he thinks of himself and his own thirst for power, nothing more. You cannot hope to trick the trickster. The image of the scars scored into the Ariza's cheeks pushes the thought out of my mind. You will need to summon Olodumare in a different way. Does such a way exist? I was told that it does by the Babalao, who fashioned the sapphires into necklaces. I shift my weight from one foot to the next, feeling a dull ache in my soles. So the high priest will be able to help me? Better. The Babalao has 2 rings in his possession, made from obsidian mined from Isle If. These are powerful, very powerful. When they are worn together, you can recite a prayer that will initiate the audience with Olodumare. Umoja adjusts a golden bangle on her wrist, pursing her lips. They are also another reason that Isu does not favor me. I would never tell him where they were. But why would he need them? Since he is Olodumare's messenger, he doesn't have to conjure an audience. And then I think of Umoja's earlier words, of Isu's craving for power. He must hate it if anyone can bypass him and speak to Olodumare. Where can I find him? Breathing in deeply, I let hope bubble up within me. Gaining Olodumare's forgiveness will be our salvation. I just have to make sure Isu doesn't get the rings. The Babalao. Is he close? The Ariza turns to the sea and is silent, contemplating its tranquil surface. The pearls of her veil catch the sun, an iridescence that casts a glow on her neck and chest. I'm not entirely sure. I last heard he was on the northern coast, but he is not there anymore. I rub my hands to the side of my thighs, and so you will have to find him. I can feel my face fall at her words and the thought of having to search on my own. I don't think the Babalao will have gone far. Umoja walks back to the soft sand, leaving me to follow her. He will be close to both the sea and a large river. The power of the two bodies of water converging is one he will always seek and settle by. I think of how many rivers meet the sea. Kola coughs and then stops, and Yamoja swivels her head in his direction. The river Ogun is powerful, he says quietly. My village is close to it, as well as a Babalawo who we can consult. Speak up, Yamoja hisses as she drifts closer to Kola. I see his eyes go to the points of her teeth, just visible beneath her white pearls. What else? He has images of you. I see Yamoja's features shift. Could this be the Babalawo she speaks of? A hint of relief shimmers in the silver and black of her eyes, the twitch of her shoulders. The sun spears through a cloud as Kola places a hand on his chest and bows. If Simodele will take me home, I will show her where the Babalawo is. What's the name of your village? I won't say. Kola swallows, his Adam's apple bobbing as he tries to stand taller and masks his nerves. If I told you now, there would be nothing stopping you from sending Simodele and leaving me behind. He fights it, but he can't keep the desperation out of his words. But I can promise that I will take her to him. My eyes widen and I suck in a breath at his words. No one should show such audacity when speaking to Naraiza. Yamoja looms over the boy, but doesn't flinch. She reaches out a hand, nails sliding down Kola's cheekbone and cupping his chin. What kinds of effigies did the Babalawo have? They show you in the mountain streams, giving birth to all the waters of the earth. Kola's voice grows louder, the bass in it deeper. They show your tears at enslavement and your journey to follow those sold and taken across the seas. Is that all? No, Kola answers. They show you and 7 others, all with tails and sapphires like the ones that Simi wears now. Yamoja snatches her fingers from his skin but doesn't take her eyes from his. A moment of silence stretches out as none of us moves or speaks. Simodele, you will accompany Kola home. Her words are quiet but firm, and he will show you the Babalawo. Without giving him another chance to speak, the Ariza whirls away. Her steps giant as she seeks the comfort of the sea. Kola looks over at me, eyebrows raised, but I ignore him and follow Yamoja as she plays with the waves, pulling and pushing them against the shore. Is he right? I didn't tell him any of that. I believe you. The details you described are not common. The Ariza stares at the expanse of blue before us. Take him. I will teach you the prayer to summon Olodumare once you have the rings. The sea sighs again while I hold my breath. I think of the journey to the village and glance back at Kola on the beach behind us, respectfully giving us distance. I don't think he trusts me. I touch the bruises on my wrists, and I don't tell her that I don't entirely trust him either. No matter, we don't have a choice, and neither does he. Yamoja lets the sea rest and places her hands on my shoulders. You must be particularly wary of Isu. I picture the scars beneath her veil and shiver. You will do better to travel mostly in human form. This will limit rumors, and I would not see you hurt. Yamoja's words don't frighten me. I'm more worried about anything else happening to her. Despite my yearnings, if it weren't for her, my bones would be deep beneath the sea. Is there any way he would know now? I glance around me, thinking of how fearful Yamoja was earlier. A sliver of panic slices through me at the thought of my actions bringing harm to her. Could he be close? The Ariza shakes her head, pearls clicking gently, and the gold in her crown flashing in the sun. Although he receives much information through the prayers and messages of humankind, he is not near. I would feel it. Arizas are connected. I touch the sapphire at my throat and think about how it pulses when any of my kind are near. Like Mamiwata? Similar, but with no reliance on jewels or talisman. If one of us is close to the other can sense it. Yamoja pauses again, running her eyes over me. You are safe for now. But despite her words, the Ariza's brow is knitted. What is it? I ask, worry settling deep inside me. You are vulnerable like this. Here. The Ariza raises a hand to her crown, fingers scraping against the large emerald embedded in her coils. She uses her nails to tease it from her hair and reveals a slim, tapered column of solid gold. I watch as the Ariza snaps her wrist and the razor-sharp blade shoots out from the width of the metal. Press the emerald to retract the blade. Keep it with you at all times. It is strong and true and will cut through almost anything. I take the dagger gingerly, pressing the gem on the end. The blade slots back inside, and I copy Emoja by sliding the weapon between the braids that curve from my forehead down to the crown of my head. I give a small bow of thanks and pat the dagger to make sure it's secure. Remember, also, that it is not just Isu you must be aware of. She holds my face, forcing my gaze to hers while she speaks. This is another reason to keep this body. Humans can often be cruel in their curiosity about the unknown. Do not trust them. I know the truth of the Ariza speaks of, remembering the look from the fisherman who caught a glimpse of me. Disbelief, fear, and the greed that slid across his face like a dark cloud over the sun. One more thing, Emoja says, drawing me closer so that only I can hear her. She takes her time, picking her words carefully. I know you sometimes remember parts of your life before, but I worry that it has clouded your actions. Keep the goal of this journey firmly in mind, and do not let yourself feel too much. Not for any human. You are of the sea now. It is forbidden. I think of the way Kola is using me to get home, and I nod, annoyance settling in among the worry. You don't need to be concerned about that. That is good, says Umoja, as her eyes deepen to the dark silver of the sky of the stormy day. That is good, says Umoja, as her eyes deepen to the dark silver of the sky on a stormy day. She blinks, hesitating more before continuing. Because if you act on loving a human, your form will be revoked, and you will be nothing but foam upon the sea.
We are continuing on with chapter 8. I dismiss the last of Emoja's warnings. I know what I am and what I am not. Instead, I focus on Izu, messenger and guardian of the crossroads of life, a trickster who enjoys deceiving and creating division for enjoyment and his own gain. Still, I didn't think he was capable of the violence hidden behind Umoja's veil. I touch a fingertip to the emerald in my hair, taking comfort in the blade it conceals. The heat of the day grows as the sun blazes down on us. Small clouds float high above, marring the perfect ultramarine sky. Kola drags out the boat that Umoja tells him is hidden in her cove, obscured by the hanging branches and leaves of the old banana tree. The vessel has a peeling wooden hull, silver from the sun. He stalks around the boat, energized by the thought of going home. A short but sturdy main mast is intact, and from inside, Kola pulls out a folded sail, dusted with leaves but usable. The boat will just about fit us both. I eye it uneasily. At least I can escape into the sea if close quarters becomes too much. While Umoja teaches me the prayer to summon Olodumare, Kola inspects the boat, placing green bananas and more of the wild lettuce inside. He finds an old water skin, which he rinses and fills with water from the bowl I made. Once Umoja has made me repeat the prayer enough times to commit it to memory, we watch as Kola shoves his boat into the clear shallows. He leaps inside, and I run my hands down the blush and gold folds of my wrapper. We should head east, I ask. I feel a tremor of nerves, and as I look up at Umoja, I know the creases of my face show it. The Ariza smiles down at me. Follow the main current east for a day, and it'll take you to the shore of the land you seek. The River Ogun is 2 days' walk if you head through the forest. She leans toward me and a cloud of her hair tickling my face and places a kiss on my forehead. I close my eyes at the warmth of her lips and open them to a wide smile. You will do well. I have the faith. Mother Emoja, I'm Simideli. I open my mouth to speak again, but the Ariza stops me. Simideli, listen to me. I know you will make things right. What is done is done. We cannot change the past, only learn from it. What happens next is up to you. The sun tightens my salt-soaked skin, and as I sit in the prow of the boat, it feels strange to be above the ocean and not below it. Yemoja returned to the sea before we set off, making me repeat the summoning prayer to her one last time. The words swirl in my mind as I let my hand dip in the waves, closing my eyes and remembering the slip of water. Simi, how do you know we're traveling the right way? We're sailing east, the way Yemoja told me to, but it's also the direction that the Oyimbo ships come from. I sit up, ignoring the scrape on my soles as I pull my knees to my chest. Kola holds his hands up to his eyes, squinting into the sun, which is slipping into the ocean. He unfurls the ropes with ease, and my interest is piqued. You're used to boats, I ask? My friends, we sailed a lot. Kola's voice falters, and he keeps his back to me as he adjusts the sails and secures the rope in a complicated-looking knot. I didn't lie. To Yemoja, I mean, my village is next to the sea and near the River Ogun. And the Baba Lawao? Kola pauses briefly but doesn't turn around. Exactly as I said. The waves roll our boat from side to side, but he moves with it, sure on the sea in a way I didn't expect. I can't stop thinking of how he all but demanded I summon the Ariza, and the way he cajoled her into getting what he wanted. Eventually, Kola can find nothing more to fuss with, and he sits down opposite of me. You took a chance with Yemoja, bargaining with her the way you did, I mean. I had to. Why? He coils some spare rope around his wrist and forearm, muscles flexing. I told you I need to get home. And you didn't think I would take you? I say, fingers skimming over the small bracelet of bruises on my wrist as Kola looks at me. If I had been in the sea, they would have healed by now. He sees what I am doing and sighs. I know I haven't shown you the best of me. Kola grimaces, his guilt plain in the way he hunches forward, eyes fastened on the marks on my skin. But I couldn't take a chance that you would be content with just taking me from the water. As grateful as I am, he looks up at me, his eyes glowing. I'm not explaining this very well, am I? I shake my head, but I think of how I found him, of what had been done to him. I need to get back to my village, not just because it's home, but... Kola hesitates for a split second. Because of my family. And what else? I ask, remembering the fear and desperation in the words when he demanded I help summon Yemoja. My brother and sister need me. Kola looks away from me, picking up the rope again, uncoiling it. I should be there looking after them. I thought I was when Kola shakes his head and stops talking, taking the rope in both hands this time, twisting it slowly around his left forearm. They're special. He faces me, and I'm worried that what I did has put them in even more danger, now that I'm no longer there to protect them. There's a rawness to his voice. It fills his words with an urgency I can hear. You'll get home. Thank you, says Kola. He shifts in the boat, and our knees almost touch no matter how I angle them. For saving me, he puts the rope down and gives me his full attention. For showing me how to summon Yemoja. You're welcome, I answer softly. I begin to untangle the coils of my hair, loosely plaiting the ends. The boat feels so small. I think of slipping over the side, of diving down into the coolness. Instead, I slide the dagger from the braids of my crown, turning it over in the palm of my hand, before I flick my wrist, freeing the blade, its sharpness bright in the sun. Did Yemoja give you that? Yes, I say, tilting the weapon, admiring the way it gleams. And I don't get a dagger? Kola asks, his voice light, teasing. What would you need one for? I'm the one taking you home. His eyes follow the blade, yearning plain in his expression. Are you jealous? I ask. Kola stares at me for a moment too long, before he shrugs. Do you really know what to do with it? I don't try to hide the small grin that forms. As Kola continues to watch, I snap my wrist, spinning the dagger in the air. The gold weapon glints as it somersaults between us. Snatching it by the hilt, I lunge toward Kola, holding the blade lightly against his throat. He swallows. Adam's apple touching the dagger. Ah, you do. But his response is blurred by the image of a man, much older than me, standing before me, showing me his stance. His short, wiry hair is shot through with gray, and a large scar runs from his hairline to the top of his left cheek. Not like that, Simadelli. Like this. And he grips the dagger he's holding in such a way that his wrist is straight and locked into position. See? The man then flips the dagger, spinning it before reaching up and snatching it from the air. Practice so that you can protect yourself and others, if and when they need it. He gestures to a smaller weapon in my hands. Now you. I copy the hold he showed me. The late afternoon breeze cool on the bare skin of my arms. My chest tightens momentarily as I squeeze the hilt. I don't want to disappoint him. Breathe. Breathe. I suck in a deep breath and then throw the blade into the air, my eyes on the weapon as it tumbles through sunlight. And then, just as I was shown, I reach for the dagger. My fingers grasp the leather hilt, but slip slightly as a curl falls into my face. I breathe out slowly, the weapon clutched in my hand triumphantly, but my knees shaking from what was a near miss. How many times have I told you, braid your hair so that it does not distract you? And with the last words, he leans forward and starts to loosely gather my curls. Despite his admonishment, he is smiling. I close my eyes and breathe in the smell of him, the faint tang of sweat and mangoes and hot earth in the rain. We will practice until it is too dark to see. Daughter. He called me daughter? I sit back in the boat, gently twirling the knife between both my hands, fingers flying on the sharp gold weapon. With a click of the emerald, I push the blade back into my braids. We should rest, I say, cutting off any more conversation. Curling up on the side of the boat, I stare at the horizon, my chin propped up on the knot of my arms. My father. I hold the gray coils of his hair and his scent, which is still fresh in my mind. Closing my eyes, I go over the memory again and again. If I concentrate, I can almost feel the calluses on his fingers as he parts my hair. The deftness of his touch as he weaves the strands in and out, creating a simple plait. Simi. I don't open my eyes. Instead, I recall the smells of mangoes and earth. A pleased grin when I block his parry. Simi. What? I all but explode, sitting up suddenly, causing the boat to rock violently beneath us. Look, Kola's pointing to the horizon, where the sun is heading in a fiery ball. I squint, holding one hand to my brow. Already I can feel the sound of my father's voice slipping away. And when I see what Kola is showing me, I lower my hand, clutching the wood of the boat, its worn grain like satin beneath my panicked grip. A ship. Black masts that look like spines, and a curved hull that plows through the peaks and troughs of the sea. A ship that looks just like the one Kola was thrown from. Chapter 9. Get the sail down, I hiss, but I know that we are most likely too late. The sea is a flat calm, docile after the storm when I found Kola, so we are very easy to spot. The ship seems to teeter in the distance, but it is moving fast, nearly as quick as the pulse of my heart. Behind the 3 giant masts, the sun lurks, blurs of orange and red that smudge the sky like dried blood. Kola's fingers fly over the knots as he works quickly to bring down our sail. His jerky movements cause the boat to rock, and even as I'm thinking about turning us around, the ship alters its course. The boat pointed straight at us. Kola has seen this too, and he sits down in the cramped stern. It would take too long to try to swim back to Umoja's Island, and I'm not sure Kola would make it so far, even with my help. Go, he says, wrapping the ropes around his fist. He looks at the sea, then imitates the sky in the vivid azure. His mouth set in the hard line. I could sleep underneath the surface, dive down into the dark, cool parts. My skin is already feeling tight under the sun. And my bones feel as if they're in unnatural formations. It would be so easy. Protect yourself and others if and when they need it. No, I grope the emerald in my hair, extracting the dagger from my braids. I'm not leaving. Kola's eyes burn as he regards me for stretched out seconds. The muscle in his jaw ticks, but I don't change my mind. He lifts a small anchor, testing its heft, and as the ship draws closer, I flick the blade of my dagger free. We will fight. I will fight. Weaving my way through the dense forest, I lead my friend to the grove of pear trees. The feast after my father's ceremony of knowledge would only be complete with some of the wild fruit that grows in the woods. Not long, I say, smiling at Arya. I'm grateful to have her with me, especially since the shadows are deepening. She plods along beside me, always happy to escape the chores of looking after her smaller cousins. Arya is the first to see them. Her nails dig into my arm, and I turn to see the Oyimbo slip between the trees. We freeze. My heartbeat spikes, and for a moment all I can hear is the thump of it. They must be spirits with their white skin. One of them, much taller than the others, reaches us first, and I am startled by the pink slash of his mouth and the hank of brown hair that sweeps back into a straight ponytail. His smile is full of yellow teeth as he pulls a dagger from a leather sheath at his waist. The Oyimbo behind copy him. As the blades catch the waning daylight, my mouth goes dry. I try to stop my legs from trembling. "Simi," says Arya, a plea in her voice. I have heard a few tales of the Oyimbo from the traveling storyteller who had journeyed the length of the coast. He spoke of the cloth and new metal weapons the men trade with villagers in return for spices, gold, people. The storyteller said they were kidnappers too, attacking people collecting water or hurting their animals. By the light of the warmth of the fire, with a belly full of chicken stew, the stories had seemed so unreal. Now fear crawls inside me, slithering through my veins. "Stay to the side of me," I hiss, as the Oyimbo move toward us. My voice sounds far away as blood thuds in my ears. I don't have my knife. I'm scanning the ground looking for something to wield when a tall man lunges for me. I stumble backward, pushing Arya out of the way, and he snatches my arm. I think of the moves my father taught me last summer, twisting a kick out, my foot connecting with the man's abdomen. The Oyimbo makes a small, surprised grunt, his grip loosening. I rip myself free and drag Arya with me, scanning the forest desperately for a weapon. A dead tree lies near, its trunk shining bone white. Grabbing one of the thick branches, I swing it like a staff at the men. Arya rips off a branch of her own. I don't understand what the Oyimbo says, but I can see that his eyes are hard, his dagger pointed in the gloom. My hands shake, but I don't let my staff slip. The other men fan out, creating a loose circle around us. They smirk. I swallow my tears, snarling instead, not wanting them to see how scared I am. What will our mothers think if we don't return? The Oyimbo rushes forward and I spin, whirling the branch, trying to create space for Arya to run. "Go, Arya," I say. I am breathing hard now, chest hitching. My fault, I think as I turn away from the terror that gleams in Arya's gaze. This is all my fault if I hadn't insisted on getting the pears. "No," Arya frowns and adjusts her stance, bare feet shuffling in the dirt of the forest floor. "I won't leave you. Go, I scream, and I know that I'm crying now, but I don't care. The Oyimbo circles us. I manage to hit one of them on the shoulder, but the other man wrenches the branch from my grip. Backed against a large tree, I push the fear away, embracing the fury rising within me. Come, I shout as they move closer. What will you do? I clutch my dagger as the memories rip through me, sucking the air from my lungs. I stumble and bend over as if punched. Kola stands before me, looking up at the hull of the ship. I was taken. This I knew, but it's one thing to know that it must have happened to another to remember it, to have the images in my mind, to remember that fear. I shake, my legs bending as I fight to stand upright. I think of the same kind of men on the ship before us and let the burn in my chest spread through me, straightening my back until I can see the dark, wet wood of the hull looming ahead. The waves before us double, growing in size and violence. Because of the approaching vessel, Kola has edged me behind him. His back is a knot of scabs, some still raw and others closing slowly, lashes he suffered from the Oyimbo on a ship like that. I hold my dagger with intent, wanting to see how it slices, wanting the chance to use it. What do you see? I hiss from behind Kola as he tips his head back, looking high up at the ship's railing. The boy doesn't reply, but the rope slips from his hands, thudding quietly into the bottom of the boat. I move, shifting so that I can look past him. The side of the ship is peppered with barnacles, the wood glistening with sea spray. I squint upward past the figurehead of the intricately carved woman with long flowing hair, and up to the sharp point of the bow. The triangular sails of the ship crackle in the wind, framing the forecastle. Several men holding guns and swords, whose blades flash in the sun, look down on us. The grip of my dagger falters as I scan their faces. The tallest peers down, a grin spreading across his face. His skin is brown as ours. Greetings, brother and sister. Will you board? Kola turns around and I see the relief and sag in his shoulders, but his hands are still clenched, knuckles tight. The creak of the hull breaks the silence. What do you think? He asks in a low voice. Why would they be sailing such a ship? I'm quiet for a moment, watching as the men unfurl a rope ladder, its woven rungs cascading down the side of the ship. I think of the Oyimbo who sail such vessels, the deaths they cause as if we are nothing, our bodies that they discard. We'll have to see, I think. I think we should be careful, as Umoja told us to, but it looks like we're going to find out what they have to say. Besides, we don't have much choice. I pick up the rope and begin to tie it around the bottom of the ladder, anchoring the boat. If we need to, we can leave quickly. Kola looks at me and then up at the ship before nodding. I'll go first. The coarse threads of the rope, frayed and rough, are tight in my grip as I hold the bottom of the ladder. Kola climbs steadily up and I follow closely behind him, my mind whirling as I try to think about what the ship crewed by men from our lands might mean. In the time since Umoja made me, I have never seen such a vessel or such a group of men sailing it. Despite my caution, I want to know more. When I reach the ship's railing, Kola is there holding a hand out to help me. I'm glad he does, because as soon as my feet touch the deck, I stumble, pain shooting up from my soles. I'm still not used to being in this form for so long. Among the rigging, gathered around 3 masts and standing before us, are a crew of men and women, all the same but different. The same in that they are all from our lands, in shades of brown to tan to dark brown and onyx, but different in the people they belong to. Some have the simple vertical scar of the Ondo on each cheek, while few wear the vibrant cloth of the Aja from Alada. 4 men even wear the red head wraps of the Songhai Empire, their hands on swords tied around plain white agbadas. It's clear that there are no Oyumbo, and the crew's presence takes away some of my apprehension. As we are led across the deck, I watch my step, careful to place one foot in front of the other. The ship rocks from side to side, and I'm continually adjusting my gait, sliding my feet across the wooden planks cautiously while I come to the groove of the door for the hold below. I stop, my toes just touching the black outline of the hatchway. The space in the belly of the ship is dark, the only weak sunlight filtering through the wooden deck above. I don't lift my head from the hot press of my knees. Slick with sweat and salt of my tears, the air is humid. An almost solid beast that squats above us, and my lungs are tight from the heat and the stench of misery. I hold on to the memory of my last glimpse of land, its brown slice dotted with trees, framed by the churn of the sea, more water than I had ever seen before, with the waves up to my thighs and a scream rising in my throat. I had gasped prayers to Umoja before the wind snatched them from me and the Oyumbo forced me into the small boat. One man had been shouting on the journey to the large ship, hitting out at the Oyumbo. Despite his manacles, matched with a ring of black iron around his neck, he struck two before they shot him once. His body tossed into the sea, where it lay floating in a cloud of blood that colored the waves in shades of red and pale burgundy. I shudder at the remembered sight, pushing my face harder against the skin and bones of my legs. The scrape of chains against the wooden planks is accompanied by cries and shouts of the Yoruba and Twi. I keep my eyes closed tight, not wanting to see the crush of bodies, limbs heavy with the weight of chains, but I can't block out the sound of the sea, the clank of the manacles, and the incessant groans of the despair that float on the filthy air. Instead, I swallow my own cries, throat dry and raw, and I know that even if I wanted to scream, I couldn't. Two more have died today, and even now I can feel the sickness. It slides under my hot skin, flowing through my blood and mingling with my fear. The only thing I'm more afraid of than dying in the dark, no breath, or anyone to say my final prayers, is when the hold opens, a bright rectangle of bright white light that blinds us, a sign that some of the Oyumbo are coming to Simideli. My name pulls me from the recollection. I can taste it still. The terror is sharp on my tongue, coating my throat, slipping down inside me where it has nested before. I place a hand on my chest as if trying to push the beat of my heart back down to normal, taking deep breaths and focusing on the wind that stings my cheeks. I'm not in the hold anymore. I'm not. Simideli, says Kola, and I realize he's been talking to the man who appears to be the captain, the tallest of them all. This is Abayomi, the captain of the ship. I force myself to open my eyes, nearly twice my size. Abayomi steps back so as not to crowd me. His head is shaved but for a thick braid at the back which runs down the nape of his neck, and he wears a wrapper as black as ink and with tiny bursts of gold stars. Welcome, Simideli. The man presses his broad chest with one huge fist and nods in greeting, his voice a deep rumble that is as soothing as it is powerful. The richness of his tone makes me think of my father. I still can't speak, not trusting my voice, so I nod instead, fluttering an unsteady hand to my chest in greeting. Abayomi was saying that they took the ship from the port. That is right. We are a crew assembled by the Awanolori Abuli. Abayomi adjusts strings of red coral beads that decorate his wrists, complemented by a heavier set hanging from his neck. Our leaders were shamed at the lies we believed and the discord sowed by the Oyumbo. Some of us were selected to work as one in order to take back those stolen from us. Lies? I ask, my voice softer than normal. I concentrate on standing, willing the muscles of my legs to hold me upright. Yes, lies spread by the Audiobook to incite violence among different cities and villages. It benefits them when there are more prisoners of war to be bought. Abayomi looks directly at me, and I hold his gaze. We patrol the waters of our lands, attacking any slave ships. Fighting back. You said some of you? What about the rest of these people? Abayomi nods at my perception. Yes, the rest were liberated from the ships. Have you destroyed or taken many vessels so far? Kola asks, his voice colored with hope. 4 so far, as in many months. They are sailing northeast, back to their lands. The thought of those ships being destroyed brings me a joy I see mirrored in Kola. He looks over at me and smiles, his eyes bright. I know of another just a few days away. Kola turns back to Abayomi, stops and swallows. He looks down at the raw scars on his wrists. Do you think you could catch up to it? Abayomi takes Kola's hands in his, holding the back slightly. He frowns, eyes hardening. I am sorry that this happened to you. He pulls Kola in closer for a brief moment, his arm around the boy, squeezing. When Abayomi releases him, Kola wipes his eyes. If you can, I would like you to describe the route to my navigator. If we can locate it, the ship will be next. Abayomi surveys the ship before gesturing down the stairs. Come, join me for some food and we can talk. We follow Abayomi down to the main deck, and I marvel at how they have adapted the ship. Despite its use before, the aura now is one of calm and quiet focus. Everyone working together. We move past chicken coops and even a pen holding a goat at the sides of the deck. Before we come to the captain's cabin, it is cramped, but draped with woven blankets in shades of orange, red, and yellow. The walls adorned with several depictions of Ogun, rendered in small sculptures and paintings. 2 tall swords shine from the corner, their hilts carved with bone-white ivory. Abayomi ducks inside, holding the door and gesturing to the blankets that cover the sleep mat. Please sit. There's water in the jug. I will get the cook to bring you some food. The captain disappears towards the gallery, and I move towards Kola. Tripping slightly on the thick edge of the blanket, he steadies me with a hand as I lower myself next to him. What do you think? I say in my voice low. I never thought I would see such a thing. Kola's voice is full of awe. I think the same, but I also recall Yamoja and the caution she urged. Let's see what he has to say, and then move on. Agreed, says Kola, but I could see the admiration and joy emanating from him as he pours the water into wooden cups and hands it to me. By the time I have finished drinking, Abayomi returns with a man half his size, but just as wide. With hair that grows in black, white, and gray tufts, the man has a face that is open with a huge smile. You are lucky you boarded just as Musa has cooked some pepper soup. The cook proffers bowls of food, rice as well as spice, he says, showing a large gap between his teeth, and he lets out a booming laugh, grinning down at us. Kola's stomach growls in reply, and the men chuckle. We thank Musa and he dips his head in acknowledgement before waddling off. Abayomi folds himself next to Kola and smiles as the boy eats. I cradle the bowl in my hands, letting the spice of the pepper mingle with the steam from the soup, and breathe in deeply. It has been so long since I've had such food. Slowly taking my time, I scoop up balls of salty rice, pushing them between my lips while I let the soup cool. When I can wait no longer, I take a small sip, and I have to stop myself from guzzling the whole bowl. The flavor bursts on my tongue, like no other, hot and fiery with a powerful kick. I drink the rest, savoring each mouthful. Abayomi listens as Kola describes the slave ship he was on, detailing the weapons and the number of Oyimbo on board, and I feel a sense of peace that Kola will not be the only one saved. Abayomi explains how he was the one to attack the ship he now commands, taking it while it was docked. It is not something I ever agreed with, this trade with the Oyimbo of any kind, he sighs, sitting up straighter and glancing at the brass sculpture of Ogun, the riser of iron and one who despises injustice. At least this way I can do something about it. We are silent a moment before Abayomi clears his throat and splits his gaze between the both of us. So, will you tell me how you both came? Will you tell me how you both came to be in the middle of the sea in such a small boat? I've just pushed the last of my rice into my mouth and am chewing as he asks this question, darting a glance at Kola. I hope you remember the caution Yamoja pressed upon us. And then a sudden worry courses through me. What if Kola decides to join them or ask Abayomi to take him home? I don't even know where the Babalawal is. The rice sticks in my throat, forcing me to take a gulp of water to swallow it down. Simi came across me while she was on the sea fishing, just after I had been thrown overboard. The storm was bad, but it meant no one saw her. I put the bowl down in relief, its hard bottom cracking on the wooden planks of the floors. It's not entirely a lie, but I wonder what he will say next. We were pushed further out by the strong winds Kola gestured around, and then luckily we came across you. How far until we reached land? One day? Abayomi slides his gaze from Kola and contemplates my silence. I can tell that he doesn't fully believe what the boy is saying, but he's also seen the wounds on his wrists. Those welts are not something that can be made up. Where did you sail from, Simideli? A village on the coast, I answer, keeping my words simple. A fishing village? You know of many? Asks Kola, pulling the conversation back to him. He tells Abayomi of the coves and rock formations on the western shore, the way the jagged coastline makes entering and leaving almost a complicated dance between the shallows and the boats. It is not far, not even a day, Abayomi says, spreading his palms wide in a small space. The wind must not have blown you as far away as you thought. This is excellent news, says Kola. Should I speak with your navigator before we leave? Or do you have all that you need to track the ship I was on? Abayomi gets to his feet and we copy him. The cabin feels much smaller when we are all standing. I have enough. Let me furnish you with some supplies before you go, just in case you are blown off course again. I snatch a look at Kola, and he raises his eyebrows. We would be very grateful, he answers. Thank you, I add. Abayomi smiles, and I know he senses we haven't told him everything, but he's willing to help us anyway. I send a grateful prayer to Olodumare, and I step out the door the captain holds open for me. As we head back to the forecastle, I glance around the crew as they scurry across the rigging and swarm about the ship, each doing their part to keep such a large vessel going. Abayomi asks a boy, who looks about the same age as Kola, to get some food and fresh water, and we wait, a growing breeze ruffling our wrappers. I still can't believe so many have come together in alliance. I run my gaze over them, trying to count the different types of people on board, and then I see them. 2 older men linger near the mainmast, wearing dyed indigo wrappers covered with white concentric circles and slung low around their waists. They speak together, but their words are taken by the wind. We wind our way through the market, passing stalls selling everything from leopard skins and mangoes to small silver daggers with prayers to Ogun, carved into the simple wooden handles. It's busy today, and the air is full of smells of turmeric, nutmeg, black pepper, and spiced aroma of cooked goat. Calls and greetings mingle with varying levels of haggling and even full-blown argument between a large, round woman and a wiry man. An elder soothes them as they argue over the price of a bulbous terracotta pot. Its painting and gloss making it more expensive than the man wants to pay. If I were on my own, I would weave through it all straight to my favorite fruit stall. It's run by an auntie who always wears a grass green wrapper. She sells the freshest papaya in all of Ohio and always puts aside the ripest for me. I would gorge myself on the sweet burst of the fruit, wiping the juice away before I fetched everything my mother had sent me for. But today we are all together as a family to buy something special, and we head to the stall closest to the palace compound entrance. Fabrics hang in folds of color from rich burgundy to gauzy swirls of light violet, with the soft curve of her back and her white hair in neat braids. Mobilaji sits to the side of the stall, smiling as my mother approaches. The old woman is well known for the highest level of quality cloth. A new wrapper for one of the chosen scholars? Mobilaji asks. I heard the news this morning. My mother's face almost splits with the size of her smile. That is right, Auntie. Only one of a dozen announced each year. Please tell me you have some of the official cloth left. Of course I do. I set some aside for you especially. I watch as my mother bows, clasping Mobilaji's hands and cooing over the fabric she pulls out from underneath a pile of plain cotton. The thick waxed cloth is a deep indigo, decorated with interlocking white circles, made only for the Olefin scholars, and is one of the rarest designs. I edge away from the chatter and run my hands over the fabric I covet every time we visit the stall. A pale and delicate yellow shot through with gold. The diaphanous material feels the way I imagine a wisp of a cloud would. I run my finger over a section edged in bright gold and try to tamp down my desire as it nearly swallows me whole. I will buy this one day for you, Simadali. My father is next to me. You deserve a wrapper as beautiful as you are. I let go of the material and I lean over to kiss him before my mother pulls him to her and holds the indigo cloth against him. He runs his fingers over the raised circles and waxed surface. You've earned this, Baba, I say as he grins at my mother. I stand back admiring both of my parents as they clutch the deep blue cloth, faces filled with broad smiles when my father wears the new wrapper for the ceremony of knowledge, along with all the other newly appointed officials. I know that my heart will burst with pride. The men are from Ohio. They must be, and that is where I am from. I sag against the railings, wanting to sink to the deck and go over and over all that is coming back to me, but I don't get the chance. The sky swirls, whipping to a smear of charcoal gray with the slashes of pale blue. I grip the wooden rail as a sudden wind stirs, wrapping itself around the ship, pulling at the rigging and the lateen sails. I press a hand to the fabric of my wrapper. Something doesn't feel quite right. I glance around, scanning the deck. Women and men shout, calling to one another as they scurry about, securing ropes and trying to get to the sails. All looks normal, but my stomach lurches in a way it does when there's danger in the sea. I drop my gaze to the water, examining its surface for anything unusual. But the blues and grays shift and heave in their usual waves. For a moment, a large swell rises, and I think, Olokan, deep beneath us. But then I remember how the horizon is chained to the bottom of the sea, destined never to see the sun or moonlight again after trying to flood the earth. Breathing in deeply, I feel a small relief when Kola returns. I am already used to the lithe movements and the greetings he has for all on deck. He stops to help a man finish securing a barrel with large, tight knots, and as he heads toward me, I see light in his eyes and a small smile on his lips. He opens his mouth to call to me just as a crack of thunder rends the air. Kola finishes, arms race to his head automatically. I start toward him and feeling the wrongness strong and acute as the burst of lightning tears through the clouds, missing the ship by mere feet. I cringe, dropping into a crouch as Kola skids down beside me. Above us, the clouds are being torn apart. My heart stutters. Starting again with another bolt is thrown from the sky. There's only one Ariza who can control lightning. Sango, I whisper, panic coiling deep within me. I'm not sure Kola hears my words, snatched by the unnatural wind, so I point up at the Ariza, who looks as if he is tearing a hole in the very fabric of the sky. Alright, thank you guys for sticking with me through a couple more chapters of Skin of the Sea. And in the next video, we will continue with chapters 10, 11, and 12. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe wherever you are in the world. And I love you. Good night.